Hey everyone, fascinating topic today with a true industry insider and expert around you leveraging automation and AI for cyber defense. A very hot topic these days. Mike from Swimlane, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for being here. You're out in Golden, Colorado, beautiful part of the world. Summer is here, so sorry we're both inside at the moment. But we're going to dive into all things AI, automation, low code in the security world. I'm really excited to have you here. Maybe introduce yourself, your
Yeah.
role at Swimlane, and for those who aren't aware, what is Swimlane's mission these days?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like Swimlane, we're an automation studio, like a platform for low code, where we
Hmm.
take a lot of the manual processes that people often struggle with, primarily focused on cybersecurity, but often branch out to other business or lines of business as well, to help just automate reporting, automate ingestion, transformation of data from all the different or many sources that we generally have to deal with to reduce that context switching that is pretty prevalent in our industry. And then we take that, normalize it in our system of record, and then present it so people can act and make sense out of it. Who am I? Yeah, Mike Leiborg, born and raised in
Born and
Sweden.
raised in Sweden.
So if
So
you,
if you,
sorry, I'm having some
sorry, I'm
feedback
having
here. A bit
some
of an echo
feedback
there.
here. A bit of an echo there.
Yeah, sorry about that. We have some technical issues as a first for everything, I guess. But yeah, and tell us about your go-to-market. How do you work with customers, partners, and talk a little bit about RSAC, the big event that we just were both at.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
to wrap up.
Just
So primarily been with Swimlane for 7 years, and CISA for the last couple of years. Obviously, as we went out to RSAC, it was really interesting to walk around the floor. Pretty much everything that we saw was automation, AI, and obviously goes well with our go-to-market, which focuses on taking these, technologies, processes, and people, and kind of gluing them together via automation.
Yeah, fantastic. And describe your journey around automating AI response. When did you start thinking about leveraging machine learning in the platforms, and what was that like? Developing those technologies and integrating from the ground up.
I think a lot of it came down to just safeguarding, security risk, right architecture, making sure that since we're a global organization, keeping the data in regions. So spent a tremendous amount of time reviewing the best practices, working with AWS and others on our deployment architecture infrastructure, as well as all the APIs and modeling. But ultimately, we have the ability then to kind of bring that context from all these various data sources, right? So if we often look from a zero trust perspective or a framework, you have identities, devices, networks, workloads, and obviously the data, right? So we often are primarily focused on, well, who are the identities, and then what can they access in data, and then figure out the paths throughout. So using AI, now you can start asking those really good questions like, well, hey, what's Mike been doing the last 30 days? Because otherwise you have to go out and query all these data sources, but bring it into a system of record. This becomes pretty easy. And another thing is we often do KPIs, right? So we interview the stakeholders, and same for our customers and partners. Like, what do they want to see? Because we have a composable UI, so they can tune and change and take our kind of modular approach and make it anything that they want to see or measure on. But a lot of people, including myself, it's cool to look at dashboards, right? Pie charts and everything else. But what's the story that it's telling? So we also started bringing out, asking those questions. So taking all the KPIs for month over month, week over week, like year over year, and then using AI to kind of come out with, maybe a summary statement. What does it mean? So it if you present that to the board, sometimes it's just better to have like, here's a summary statement. Hey, IT, security, risk, GRC, everybody's firing on all cylinders. Everything's great. Or, oh, we have a gap right here. We're seeing a decline, right? So as we take all of these pieces of data in to be able to make sense of it.
Fantastic approach. Tell us about your journey through the landscape of cybersecurity over the number of years you've been in the industry. I won't date you here, but you've seen a lot of change, a lot of innovation. What was that journey like, and what are you most excited about these days in terms of the present landscape and how you're helping customers?
Yeah, I think I will date myself a little bit, right? I used to be working on Y2K back in LA, Lower Alabama, in the 90s, but transitioned to the U.S. government about a decade or more in the United States Marine Corps and some other places. Yeah, no, it was an experience, but. Technology is always, even in the military fighting force, right? For the warfighters, technology is always giving us ability to do more with less, or stay more informed, whether it's through communications or whatever data and lessons learned, even like knowing what other people have experienced in those areas of operations. So I often look at cyber and information security from a similar lens. Right? If we're here to protect an installation, it's the same in protecting some sort of digital assets or customer data or whatever that may be. So knowing what those centers of gravity, like what they are and what we're here to protect, is paramount. So if you start from there and work your way out, do your gap analysis, etc., you kind of come up with a pretty good plan. And then tabletops, war games, response remediation, like what if, what are we going to do if this happens? So a lot of contingency planning helps out because it keeps everybody informed. But yeah, after I got out of the military, what ended up happening, I was building a couple of security programs for some public companies and others. And what we saw there was that the whack-a-mole, right, or the kind of you're doing the same thing day in, day out, and you're writing Python and Bash or PowerShell scripts to go and do or perform actions on behalf of you to do investigations or bring in audit evidence for a 404 or ITGC. So as we look at all those things, I was like, this is silly. This is very manual, and you're doing the same thing year after year, sometimes weekly or quarterly, and it just takes up a lot of time. And then you take all of this data and then build pivot tables and you try to present that. So one of the first things that we often do when we talk to our customers and partners is, well, what do you hate most in life? And when you talk to CISO, it's often that reporting, right? So switching over to Swimlane, we then started automating all of that, and I started really seeing the value, because now you can make a predictable and repeatable process that if you have a security operations center with 100 people, and instead of having 100 ways of doing your general information flow, your triage, analytics, your queries, we just automate that, and you're still leaving, the final decision often with the responder. So I think at Swimlane, it's been an amazing journey. It still is every day, especially now with AI, because a lot of the queries and data modeling that we had to do manually, we can now use AI for.
No, it's a tremendous opportunity. And maybe describe how your customers are leveraging the platform today. How do they get started? What are some of the biggest challenges in moving to a more modern platform like Swimlane from perhaps some of the legacy approaches to this space?
Yeah, I think a lot of times it just starts with, do you have a process, right? And if they have a process, is it as written or is it in someone's head? So interview those stakeholders, those individuals. We often if you interview the analysts, right, or the incident responders, and you figure out what they do day in, day out, that's very repetitive or something that can be automated. If you bring value to them, then that flows all the way up. So the journey often looks like we're a cloud platform, right? So we can spin up a tenant very, very quickly for that account, and then start bringing in from our marketplace connectors that then allow you to kind of orchestrate, right? Orchestration was the first thing. We got to connect to your infrastructure, whether it's cloud or on-prem, via sensors and agents to start taking in this data or making API calls or receiving webhooks, right? And once we've orchestrated, then we then figure out what that process is. And that can often be a rinse and repeat. Like we're continuously improving internally as well, but then sharing and having these kind of conversations, you always learn something new every day. And I was doing another interview 2 days ago, and got asked some pretty good questions. I was like, I hadn't thought about that, so maybe I'm going to go ahead and have the team automate that next. But then it's also that you also have to consider, all right, if it takes 4 hours to build, then what's the return on investment there? Because if it takes you 1 hour to do this annually and you're spending 4 hours to do that, then is it really, okay, it takes 4 years. I'm kind of making these numbers up a bit, but so figure out the low-hanging fruit, the things that really bring immediate impact and return to your organization, and then expand from there. Because every time you automate something, obviously you kind of get the one thing that you can't buy, and that is time back.
Great point. And as someone who was in the military, you understand the importance of teamwork and collaboration, to say the least. How important is that within the organizations you serve, not just within the security team, but with other departments, with other teams, with the wider IT team? I mean, how do you think about facilitating collaboration?
Yeah, we often look at it from a risk perspective, right? So it's easy to just go and put a stick in the wheel and say, okay, we're turning this off, we're changing this technology to that. But business risk is also directly, I mean, it's, are you creating friction? Are you slowing down? Like, are you kind of reducing the speed of innovation from a technology perspective, right? So that's risk as well. So collaboration is key, especially in our kind of world, right? But for any company or organization out there. So figure out that happy balance, and then kind of couple that with all the frameworks, reporting requirements, better practices. Like NIS2, DORA, like things in Europe, right? And now here in the US with the Secure Software Development Framework, SEC reporting. There's so many really great frameworks, and there's a lot of overlap. So then also figuring out, okay, if we do this next kind of technical control and risk mitigation, what's the return across the globe, right? Across the different frameworks, and how can we then float that up as a value add to the business? So and then also a lot of focus on the zero trust. Zero trust is nothing new. I think if we all just take a little breather and we ask ourselves the questions like, all right, where are the quick wins? If we remove local admin on endpoints, automate a lot of the identity and just in time and PAM and the things to handle that. Those kind of issues, now you buy yourself more time, and you can then focus on the in-depth, or being kind of more shifting left and being proactive versus always being reactive.
Oh, great advice. And as we saw at RSAC and every day in the media, these cyber threats are becoming more and more sophisticated. I mean, how do you and the team stay ahead of these evolving threats and ensuring the platform is effective against what's coming today, but tomorrow as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. We spend a tremendous amount of time, and we have a lot of great automations to reduce vulnerabilities and just be aware on what's in our stack via bill of materials, like our supply chain, and also the provenance, right? An attestation of this is what's running in our stack. So when we do get like CISA KEVs or the known exploits, we don't have to go and hunt, because we already have a good inventory of everything that is in our code base and everything that's running on all our endpoints, etc. So that's an automated signal that just comes in from CISA, and then we go and look and see where we're affected. and then prioritize accordingly, right? Depending on the asset value, the exposure, the attack surface, to kind of rinse and repeat. And then also dissemination and communication often back to our customers, saying, hey, we're not affected by this, because otherwise you're going to probably receive a bunch of emails, or someone is, and then now that's taking time away from other important business opportunities, right, and deliverables.
Well said. You have so many great partners and customers. You don't have time to talk about them all, but any success stories or case studies, illustrations of working with organizations out there that you're allowed to talk about? Of course, most people don't want to be in the news or mentioned on social media, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'll redact the labels or names, but we have several organizations, right, where they might have had like a couple of hundred people in their security or IT program where they're automating, and just the immense return of investment there, right, of taking tier ones and basically getting them all to tier twos or tier threes. So by automating, you're not getting rid of people; you're just making them more efficient. You can drive their career, professional education, and everything else, because they're not busy answering emails and tickets and collaboration messages, because that can all be kind of automated, right? And we also see, well, that's directly like dollar values, right? Because now you're increasing efficiencies across the board. What we're seeing more and more of right now is when organizations that are growing through the maturity levels, right? They're like, wait, we did this in our security operations center or CSERT, and now we're going to do it in our IT ops for onboarding, offboarding. Well, let's bring in HR. Maybe we can do some stuff in legal and finance. So, that it's literally endless what you can do.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. You help building those security cultures and best practices. And when it comes to you personally, how do you stay ahead of the curve in terms of knowledge and know-how and insight? It's no small task unless you're a carnivore of info and media and reports 24/7. What are your best practices, and what do you suggest to maybe up and coming folks in the industry to build out their career and professional development?
Yeah, no, just stay engaged. I spend several hours a day actually working with peers, meeting other CISOs or CIOs and CTOs, and listening. I do a tremendous amount of listening to what their issues might be or what's on their roadmap, and then I get to bring that back to the teams, and then we get to think and spitball. So like, how will we solve that? Or maybe someone found a new technology or some new kind of process or means or ways of doing work, and then going and assessing that. But yeah, mainly listen. I do a lot of events, and like these kind of interviews and chats and talks are tremendously important to just stay informed and share information, because I think it's not how we do it or another org, it's how we do it all together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I thank you for coming on and sharing your insights, despite a couple of technical glitches that you always have to be prepared for those. So what are you looking forward to as we enter the summer months, personally and professionally? Any events or travel? And what do you like to do in Greater Denver? Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. Is it mountains, fishing, biking, hiking, all the above?
All the above. Yeah, no, I when I got out of the military, I swore that I was never gonna ruck or camp again, right? But we do a lot of that here with the whole family. So spend a lot of time outdoors, and even this weekend, it's a long weekend. We're gonna go ahead and go riding. So we do enduro on the weekends when time permits. And then I'm off to InfoSec Europe in London. So a couple of events there, an IS2 Congress in Stuttgart in early July. Then obviously we got Black Hat and a couple of other events. So be some good travel, but in between all the travel and putting out fires or automating new, cool, innovative things, we will just kind of spend time with family and the beautiful, 300 days of summer here, or sunshine in Colorado in general, right? So.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, have a great summer. Have a great, fruitful travel and all the events coming up. And thanks so much for sharing, just your insights and advice for those watching. And thanks everyone for listening. Reach out, follow Swimlane on social media. That's where I found them. They put out some great content, very educational. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Stay in touch. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.